now that I'm off to a really, really bad start, how about you guys introduce yourselves?
Hi, so I'm Tom. I work at Fabric Ventures. So Fabric has been investing in the space since 2016. We're big supporters of NEAR. We invested in NEAR back in 2019. And we're very excited about chain abstraction.
My name is Emerson. I'm from LongHash Ventures. We are in a Singapore-based fund, venture fund, and accelerator specialized in bootstrapping ecosystems. And we have actually a couple of portcos who are really deep into the chain abstraction ecosystem, led the pre-seed round for Particle Network, and invested in Lit Protocol as well. And of course, also invested in Safe, which is building smart accounts, and in the future have a key store rollup as well. So personally was onboarded through a smart account and through crypto as well. So it's a topic that means a lot to me, and I think is a key element to mass adoption.
Awesome. John, I am with Outlier Ventures. OV's been around since about 2014, running accelerators since 2019. So I think we're the kind of oldest accelerator in the space, Web3 exclusive accelerator. We have NEAR as a partner of ours. We did an ecosystem development program with them last year. We have Agoric is actually a portco of ours. So yeah, we have deep interest in chain abstraction. Looking forward to talking about how and why.
So on that note, I've heard probably 20 definitions of what chain, account abstraction, everything like that is. What is chain abstraction? That's an open-ended question for all three of you.
I mean, I think Ethan gave a good...
For everyone that missed it.
Yeah, I think Ethan gave a good definition of it. Well, to me, it's really about abstracting away the interaction of, extracting away the knowledge that a user is interacting with a certain chain. I think the first example of this was like 10 years ago with Coinbase, where you can just trade any token, but of course in a centralized way. So that's my definition.
Yeah, I think I won't even go into the definition. I think that's a great one. I think, when I think of I was just thinking about this earlier. You know the meme, the bell curve meme, where it's like everybody's like struggling with it, and then it becomes, it's like kind of a really great idea, and everybody's struggling with it, and then it just becomes like, it's so easy, right? I mean, it's just making things. I feel like it's like that. Like everybody's kind of like had this really complicated idea. But it's just like an amazing thing, and we should all like be embracing it. And the fact that there's like, we're ever not really just talking about this doesn't make any sense actually, right?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's a hot take. I don't think anybody would disagree with the fact that we need more demand for everything that's happening in this space. In this infrastructure, like infra is great. Things faster, cheaper. That's great, but we need more people to be coming in and feeling comfortable using the products and the infrastructure we have. So that's what this is all about, is like making this all more accessible.
So I guess it's my turn to find the answer. It's good. You've got three VCs, and they say you have three VCs on a panel, you end up with 4 different positions. So I mean, for me, I think chain abstraction and account abstraction. For me, chain abstraction is more a recognition that one of the biggest things that has been lacking in terms of innovation in the space has been around like the user experience. And chain abstraction for me is kind of an attempt or a movement to try and put that kind of front and center. So we should think more carefully about making these things seem easy, making these things more accessible. Account abstraction for me is slightly more specific. It's kind of, for me, account abstraction is around replacing EOA wallets with a kind of a more general definition of wallet as a smart account that then allows you to do some of the things that lead you towards a more abstracted user experience. So for me, account abstraction is part of chain abstraction. But I think the reason why it's hard to kind of nail a single person down on chain abstraction is, for me, it's more about the philosophy of the space has kind of become very comfortable with very difficult UX and very difficult user experiences and very fragmented type of approaches to things. And it's a kind of a goal to try and make that stuff more accessible to new users.
So, thank you for that. Thank all three of you guys for giving me completely different answers.
I don't know if mine was an answer, actually, but
They were pretty good. They were pretty good.
I think we're pretty aligned.
They were
So-
pretty honest. I appreciated
but
it.
I'm not answering then.
So really, I guess we've already kind of said, there's not too much of a hot take or anywhere, but what kind of cases are there against chain abstraction? What are people hating on?
Well, so I think chain abstraction in and of itself sidesteps another question, which is like, what is it for? And what specifically I mean is like, what is the application for?
Now you're taking my questions.
And so, so the idea of being able, so when you kind of talk about user experience in general, you want to think in terms of what users actually want to do and accomplish. And so talking in a broad concept, I think, is helpful in terms of framing the debate, but it doesn't get to the specifics of like what specific problem are you solving for a specific subset of users who are trying to accomplish a particular goal. And there is a risk, therefore, that it then becomes one of many narratives and isn't able to kind of follow through beyond that. So that is for sure a risk. I think in order for any kind of philosophy to get broad adoption, there has to be kind of very specific pieces of tech underlying it that define something specific that makes a particular application much, much easier. So for example, we've seen, in the account abstraction space, we invested in Argent a while ago, and we've seen that, so certainly for use cases around things like gaming, it's really important you have a very seamless user experience, you're not signing every transaction. And so some of the mechanisms way to accomplish that is using technical features like session keys, using smart contract wallets. And so there you can very much see how this abstraction applies to a use case. I think a bunch of folks who are thinking about intense infrastructure and other aspects of chain abstraction, or what Ilya was referring to earlier with what NEAR is trying to do, is around kind of like abstracting away like a lot of the trading experience. So I think it's important that this overall goal is admirable, but it's coupled with a very specific user journey that solves a very specific problem.
Do either of you guys want to hop in on that?
I think the biggest case against chain abstraction is if an app wants to be a walled garden. Say Frentech was one, where you have a privy signer, own wallet on an own app, and the tokens on Frentech aren't portable from one chain to another. I think that is quite against the Web3 ethos of composability of tokens from one chain to another. So I'm hoping the core values prevail there. But I think in this permissionless, innovative ecosystem, it's a very it's a very easy path to take.
Yeah, I think just very simply, there's always the trilemma. There's always a trade-off, right? So why? Like, what's the application? What's the use case? And I think that's always important, and it's not formulaic.
It's funny you talk about what the business application is, because my next question down here was, what do you see as some of the most applicable business cases for chain abstraction? Do you guys have any actual specifics, since we're talking about how the problem is we're not being very specific?
Yeah, clearly in terms of trading, fragmented liquidity is a genuine issue, and it stops people from doing things they want to do, which is the kind of base definition of a poor UX. So the ability to aggregate like liquidity across multiple chains is not only a problem today; it's likely to be a growing problem in the future, particularly as people kind of look to build their own app chains, and the infrastructure around building all of these different app chains has vastly improved in the past couple of years. So that feels like within the kind of chain abstraction world, that feels like probably the most concrete problem to solve.
I don't know if we're going to go into emerging markets. I kind of mentioned this when we were talking before, but I think we're at Outlier Ventures. We're thinking really deeply about open finance, and it's kind of been thrown around a lot recently. It's more than just kind of a rebranding of DeFi. It's really meant for like these real world applications and people who are really transacting and need some kind of embedded, or could use some kind of embedded financial product, whatever they're using. So I think anything that involves payments, like being able to build credit regardless of what chain you're on, being able to lend and borrow, and abstracting away all of the intricacies of wallets and the things that we all think about on a daily basis. And what I was going to say about going a little bit deeper into emerging markets, we have an opportunity, I think, with all the adoption that's taking place in LATAM, for example. There's like a massive amount of adoption, and people are jumping through all the hoops that we, in this part of the world, don't think of, won't do, or at least most people won't do. But there's a real product market fit, so it's happening. And I think the opportunity is to be able to, target those areas where there's already a lot of adoption, use them they're already okay with the discomfort that we talk about, but be able to test out some of the some of the other properties that we have here with chain abstraction and account abstraction, and use it as a proving ground, so that whenever it comes out to the rest of the world, for example, it would be it'll be all figured out, so people aren't like, well, this is supposed to be easy, but it's not. So really nail it and then roll it out, right?
Yeah, I resonated with that a lot because I'm based in Southeast Asia, and in emerging markets, especially in inflation-ridden countries, you do need way easier experience on-ramp, off-ramp, in order to access these. And I think that back to the question around what's the business case for chain abstraction is when there is a breakout app, and any breakout app will eventually create their own app chains, because no current general purpose chain will be able to satisfy demand. So as more breakout apps emerge, as more demand for these new tokens emerging from these new app chains, new NFTs, new LRTs, and whatever new assets will be created in the future, will require assets to be ported from one place to another. And so I think what I'm trying to say is the more app chains, the more need for chain abstraction.
That's also my next question that I was going for was, how do we kind of see the infrastructure, apps, accounts? How do we see the landscape changing and evolving over time as we go forward? What's next? What's your goal and ideas about the future?
Yeah, well, what's
It's a
next?
big question.
So one of the where we've come from. So what we've seen is a lot of the infrastructure around spinning up chains has significantly changed and improved in the past couple of years. It's become incredibly easy, and those chains are coming closer and closer to being, in the case of layer twos, being true layer twos as opposed to side chains. And we've seen a lot of kind of infrastructure around that and scaling and ability to do that. And so within that paradigm, there is kind of more need for this stuff. What we are seeing and what we want to see in the future is what people are working on today become real. So I would say in particular, there's been a lot of folks working on things around intents. Most of that isn't real. It's a very clear direction of travel, but there's a lot of technical problems to solve. So those sorts of areas, I think, are definitely something we're actively looking at the moment.
So how do you, as a VC with a portfolio company, help your portcos differentiate between what's real and what's a buzzword?
I mean, ultimately, it comes down to building things that people actually want. So it's a case of, our recommendation kind of consistently is there's lots of kind of ways to get distracted within crypto. It's often very easy to get grants and to develop partnerships. But ultimately, if you are an infrastructure company or you're building in this chain abstraction world and you don't yet have kind of very clear product market fit, like someone like Safe does, then it's about really focusing on what will move the needle for your product to get there, knowing that a lot of the technical heavy lifting takes kind of months, even years to execute on. So it's kind of having a very clear idea of what your singular vision is and how you get there, and doing things that move the needle towards that rather than getting distracted by some of the more ephemeral parts of the crypto ecosystem.
That same question goes for you too as well. How are you helping your teams kind of navigate what's a buzzword, what's real, what's hot right now, and what's probably lasting? How do you deal with that?
Encourage meditation.
Drink a lot.
I think it's separating what is incentivized and non-incentivized. I think we definitely advise our portcos not to launch a token or launch points without clear validation that this is something that they want, that users want.
What kind of things do you look for as validation that it's something a user wants? Points are a hot one right now. How are you finding out who's really there for it and who's just there for the points?
I think the answer is people know. Yeah. So I mean, for example, I think and it's something that we talk about a lot with founders is, let's say you're a layer 2 or you're building in that infrastructure area, and it's very clear when people are coming because they're looking for points or they're looking to gain airdrops, and it's very clear if users are kind of genuine or not. And so it's important that founders are honest about that with their investors, and investors are honest about that with their founders, and are kind of candid. So I think it's actually if it's your project and people are kind of using it, you should have a pretty clear idea about whether it's real or not.
You should. But John, you're looking very pensive in the corner there. I saw some faces out of you. I'd really like to know what's going on in your mind right now.
Yeah, no, because actually I was just reflecting on something that I wrote I'm trying to remember what I wrote a few months ago, internally about some of the fragmentation that happens when there's mercenary behavior from startups and from teams. Of course, we would discourage that, but it's natural, It's founders are going to go where they get the best deal sometimes. It's not always healthy, but in fact, what I was writing is that it's clearly not healthy. So, the question is what's the value of loyalty? And sticking to a certain ecosystem and being able to grow within it. And I think that comes down to ultimately not chasing the shiny object, but really embedding yourself, getting close to the team, getting close to the DevRel, getting close to whoever it is that you need to get close to. And again, building loyalty, it means a lot to, I think, consumers as well. So, the more we have abstraction and the more we might see that, but of course it's discouraged. I think we would just kind of discourage that and encourage teams to, once they start building, figure out why they're building there, and then embed themselves with that ecosystem.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Appreciate you sharing what's
Yeah,
going on.
I'm glad I got that off my chest.
Let me see here. I had a bunch of questions, and none of them are very interesting now that I'm up here. Really what I've got for you on this one is, we've been talking about, chain abstraction and its kind of role in everything. How do we see it playing into this long-term growth and sustainability too? Because there's one thing to, have points and move on to the next thing or whatever and chase the shiny objects or not, but how do you make sure that doesn't happen to a company in your portfolio? How do you know when something's gone off the rails?
I mean, there are signs when things have gone off the rails, for sure.
Yeah, share with the class.
I think, ultimately, it comes down to kind of building what people actually want. And I think also there's often a disconnect between what people like to say that people like and what people actually do like. And so, I think, so some of the, I don't think this is a hot take at all, but, well, it's really not a hot take at all. But, there's very little evidence, for example, that consumers care about decentralization. And so decentralization is a worthy goal in and of itself, but consumers don't care, right? And so if you're arguing that people are using something because it's decentralized as an illustration, then that doesn't feel at all plausible. And so understanding what is kind of your users' motivations and whether that's real or not is incredibly important. So that's kind of normally step one is understanding the user behavior.
What's step 2?
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's for the ultimately, like it's you back founders who you think can build like incredible, world-changing products in kind of important areas. And so, to a certain extent, we do as from our side of the table, we do what we can to support them, and we try and give advice. But ultimately, you're backing founders to be able to understand the problems.
Okay, fair enough. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
No, I think that was great.
No, that's all?
I think it was great.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of, we've got big problems and big things we're solving and world problems, but I'm not hearing a lot of fun. How are we making sure that things on chain are actually kind of fun?
Games. I mean, I actually think a lot of the games today are underrated.
Like
I think there's a general impression that games in Web3 are not super, not fun, but I've actually played a couple that are pretty fun.
Do you want to shout anybody out?
Parallel is great. I think Parallel, the card game, is great.
Parallel is great.
Cypher on Immutable X is actually pretty good too. So, and these are like live games launched and playable. So I think that's a sector that's being slept on.
Yeah, I think in terms of kind of like making things fun, I think that speaks to, something that we kind of, I believe very strongly is when consumers tell you what they like, don't shy away from that. So famously, in the early 2010s when mobile kind of blew up and then mobile gaming started, a lot of the kind of gaming folks were very snobby about mobile gaming because things like Candy Crush didn't seem particularly interesting, right? When you had like GTA 4 and GTA whatever. And they were kind of like very simple games. They didn't really kind of, tick that intellectual, we're kind of expanding the industry, but users really loved them. And they loved what casual games allowed you to do on a mobile device. And now casual games and then mobile games are by far the biggest segment of the gaming market, which is also an enormous market in and of itself. And so I think leaning into what people care about in the space is really important. The Pump.Fun team, based just up the road from us in Oxford, and they kind of, really understood what people wanted and were able to give it to them in an environment that kind of lent into what sort of behavior they were seeking to kind of capitalize upon. And also in a very seamless and easy way, right? They abstracted away a lot of the kind of underlying complexity. Their clear value prop was allowing users to do something that was kind of possible before, but was very difficult, was very scammy, it was very unclear where. And they packaged that nicely in a nice platform and have kind of since reaped the rewards.
So we've got maybe 5 minutes left here, and I really want to just ask all of you one question. For everyone in the audience, what if you're just going to take away one thing away from everything we've talked about, what is it that you want them to take away?
I mean, for me, it's simple. It's build things people want.
Build things people want.
Like everything else pales into comparison to that. So chain abstraction is useful, but it's useful when paired with something that people really, really want to do.
Yeah, don't forget the Web3 values, openness, composability. I think as I said, it's easy to build a walled garden with an app, but the general space grows together if they are composable. So I think that's like the key value proposition of Web3 versus Web2, really. And I think we may be in danger of forgetting that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've maybe just to kind of wrap up a lot of the things that at least I've talked about is like follow the path of least resistance in terms of like the product market fit. I think we've built so much infrastructure, and it's time to really like figure out where the puck is headed in terms of adoption. I think we've got some good traction in certain verticals. Like I said, emerging markets as kind of as a narrative, I think is something that we're super interested in. And because there's just not the same resistance, and that's, like I said, it's like a proving ground kind of maybe for where things should go. So.
Well, thank you guys for your time tonight. Did you have one more thing you wanted to say?
Yeah, well, I mean, I opened my first answer by saying you asked a VC, you know, you asked 3 VCs a question, you get 4 answers. So it feels only fair to add a 4th answer to your question. And that is that, like, there's also, like, there's an enormous open space out there. So, you know, we've seen really great product market fits in the kind of trading area, and a lot of those things are built. But then people have built an enormous amount of infrastructure to allow you to do all sorts of things. And, you know, areas like payments, areas like gaming, these remain wide open. And a lot of that infrastructure already exists, both on the, you know, kind of on the blockchain side and the scaling side, but also on the increasingly on the user experience side. And so there's space to build great stuff.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I have something kind of cool that I'm going to totally throw out there and see if it works. So if this doesn't work, everyone forget this part. Do you have your phone on you? Yeah. Can you pull it out real quick? Can you tap my now?
That's cool.
It should pull up an NFC chip that now connects you to me.
There we go.
Yes, if you open that, that's a website that my team and I are
Your wallet gets drained.
working on.
That's pretty cool.
It's really fun. So now I have the fact that we've connected. So the world is wide open to do all sorts of things where we connect with actual people.
Wow.
It's called Chip Social. You should check it out.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for your time, guys.
Sorry, I need to add a 5th answer because I also I also want to encourage people to tokenize new things.
Yeah.
Like I think the parts of Web3 that have found product market fit is when they've tokenized new things and crypto native things. I think LP tokens were great PMF. NFTs were great PMF. And I think the space is really open for new things to be tokenized, from social groups to new assets. I think it's easier to build like tokenized crypto native assets rather than like real world assets because of regulatory reasons. But yeah, I think that's how we create fun, create culture as well.
Let's tokenize everything else. On that note, thank you guys. We are out of time, and I really appreciate you all bearing with me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.